It's said that sequels are rarely as good as the original, but sometimes the exception proves the rule. Terminator 2, Aliens, Of Mice and Men 2, Electric Boogaloo. Might be hallucinating that last one, but I think the point stands. Today's jaunt down the BattleMech lane takes us to New Syrtis, where Johnston Industries was challenged to reverse engineer the popular and successful Cataphract heavy BattleMech. The project began as an attempt to conceal the development of the Axeman, but ended up taking on a life of its own. The result was a 70-ton Caesar that stomped into existence and quickly established itself as a fighter worthy of its historical name. Today we're going to look under the hood, kick the feet, and gaze up at the noble Caesar in order to hopefully sort out how it contributed to the rough and tumble 3050s and onward. Stick around, it should be a fun one. We saw this proved, but now in the effrontery of Gaius Caesar, who, to gain that sovereign power which by a depraved imagination he had conceived in his fancy, trod underfoot all laws of gods and men. But the trouble about this matter is that it is in the greatest souls and in the most brilliant geniuses that we usually find ambitions for civil and military authority, for power, and for glory springing up. And therefore we must be the more heedful not to go wrong in that direction. On Duties, Book 1, by Marcus Tullius Cicero. After more than 20 years of seeing the Capellan Cataphract stomp all over like it owns the place, it seemed a logical choice for the Caesar design team to take what worked from the mech and improve wherever necessary. This new 70-ton BattleMech would benefit from improved technology that the original Cataphract didn't have when it was first produced in 3025. So while the two machines shared an overall look, the Federated Commonwealth's interpretation was to be even more powerful. Constructed from a Darwinian CES standard frame wrapped around a General Motors 280 extra light fusion engine, the CES 3R Caesar was not built for racing. With a top speed of 64 km per hour, the Caesar would struggle to keep up with many of the other heavy mechs in the clan invasion era. The savings generated by the XL engine would instead be invested elsewhere. 10.5 tons of Callan Royal Star armor provided 168 points of protection, which placed the Caesar firmly in the lighter side of the heavy class of battlemechs insofar as defense goes. Running the Caesar was not for the faint of heart. 16 double heatsinks were installed into the frame, and once the gyro cockpit and electronic systems were accounted for, that left a grand total of 32.5 tons of mass for weapons and equipment, just slightly less than half of the mech's total mass. The weapons loadout was where the Caesar's advantages quickly became obvious. The first of the two primary weapons consisted of the right torso-mounted Poland Main Model A Gauss rifle, which could feed from 2 tons of ammunition set into the left torso. The rifle itself was protected with case, which highlights an interesting note in one of the Comstar intel reports, which erroneously claimed the case was set into the left torso to protect the ammunition. The second major weapon system was the right arm-mounted Johnston High-Speed Long-Range Particle Projection Cannon, or ERPPC for those who prefer brevity. This in-house produced design of the classic PPC vastly improved the user's ability to hammer targets at range. Between the Gauss rifle and the ERPPC, the Caesar 3R could perform well at all ranges without any heat buildup thanks to the mech's 16 double heatsinks. The remaining mass of the mech was devoted to 4 brand new Sutel Precision Line medium pulse lasers. 2 were split between the arms and 2 were installed into the side torsos facing the rear firing arc. This was an interesting choice to devote 4 tons worth of weapons to firing in the rear firing arc, and maybe the designers just really didn't like light battlemechs or battle armor. These new Caesars stomped off the assembly lines on New Syrtis just as the Inner Sphere was beginning to feel the clan invasion. Quickly identified as a solid battle mech, orders came in not just from the Federated Commonwealth buyers, but also from mercenary units friendly with the realm. Additionally, some Caesars ended up being purchased to bolster the comm guard, though I poked around, I couldn't find any references to the mech showing up in the trial on Tukiet. While production continued throughout the 3050s, the true test of the Caesar was during the Federated Commonwealth Civil War, where the mech would be found on both sides of the conflict. Johnston Industries collected plenty of data and feedback during the conflict, including notes on the oversynced nature of the build as well as concern over the mech's longevity in a fight. Eventually, the feedback would be incorporated into new variants as we march down the timeline. Maddie unhooked her restraints and hopped up to grab the edge of the canopy. Splintered ferroglass bit into her fingers, but she gritted her teeth and pulled up, hoping to spot an emergency exit latch. Instead, she saw the Thor that had killed Greta and downed Brewski standing over the prone form of Nakamura's round-bodied Caesar, now down to a single leg. The Caesar raised the PPC in its arm and fired, the shot burying itself dead center on the Thor. A yelp slipped from Maddie's lips as she lost her grip on the canopy edge, leaving her once again limited to the view directly above her. She thought the rate of fire was intensifying. 1000, Shrapnel number 12, by Robert Schubert. Our first variant of the Caesar was a one-of design fielded by the legendary Marcus Giovante, who formed a mercenary unit in the dark early days of the clan invasion. The Avanti's Angels were a cobbled-together combined arms unit that were known for preferring rapid offensive operations where they could skirt the battlefield and fight on their terms. This was the result of Giovante's experience being press-ganged into service for the DCMS when he worked for a small mercenary unit in his early days as a Mechwarrior. Seeking to forge his own destiny with other survivors of that unit, Avanti's Angels became adept at salvaging on the fly, picking up useful technology wherever it could be found. The battlemechs and vehicles of the Angels included a hodgepodge of Inner-Sphere and clan-spec tech, including Giovante's CES-3R Caesar named Archangel. The Caesar was originally one of the few artifacts of Marcus Giovante's connection to his affluent family's fortune and life. He purchased the battlemech before being cut off from access to their bank accounts and dropping out of the New Avalon Military Academy. After the formation of Avanti's Angels, the mech continued to serve Marcus well, though it was reported that it increasingly began to look less and less stock as it took damage and was repaired with whatever was handy. After multiple bold raids into clan-held space, his Caesar was rebuilt to incorporate salvage technology, producing the variant usually referenced as a CES-3R Archangel. The structure of the mech remained stock except for the addition of a 17th Inner-Sphere spec double heatsink and an additional ton of armor, bringing the total to 11.5 tons. The fun arrived in the weapons loadout, which included a nearly complete shift over to clan-spec weaponry. This included the ERPPC in the right arm and the Gauss rifle in the right torso. The two rear-facing medium pulse lasers in the side torsos remained Inner-Sphere spec, but the three clan-spec medium pulse lasers faced forward. One was installed into the center torso, and the other two were rigged up in the left arm. The 1-2 punch of the 15 damage ERPPC and Gauss rifle made the Archangel quite powerful, though the three clan medium pulse lasers can't be ignored at the mid and short range either. There's no respite in hoping for heat to slow the attackers either, as everything facing forward can be fired on the run without crossing over into the red. Marcus put the upgraded machine to work, first under contract with the Magistracy of Canopus and later against the Smoke Jaguars on the other side of the Inner Sphere during Operation Bulldog. The Angels proved their worth on planets like Heiner, Gerstadt, and Wazero, where Giovante took pride in seeing the clans finally on the retreat. As Lauren locked his weapons for another shot at the Caesar, his target came to a complete stop and fired its Gauss rifle at Sullivan's Crusader. Moving so fast it looked like a burst of light energy, the silvery slug slammed into the Crusader's hip and the mech staggered back, armor spraying into the river. Lauren fired his PPC, sending a burst of charged particles deep into the right elbow of the Caesar, hoping to draw some of its fire. The Caesar's forearm, with its own deadly PPC, fell limp at its side as the elbow joint sparked wildly from the damage. Highlander Gambit, by Blaine Lee Pardoe. The Caesar saw extensive use, both against the clans as well as in the FedCom Civil War. Its extra heat sinks proved to be useful in non-traditional environments where other battle mechs struggled to shed their generated heat. On the planet Dustball, the fight in the blazing hot Anden wastes proved to be a bountiful hunting ground for the Caesar, while the Jade Falcon mechs it faced struggled to keep from going into automatic shutdown after only a few shots. In 3062, another one-of variant of the Caesar was spotted in the hands of a Lieutenant Hannah McQuarters, who served with the 1st Kestrel Grenadiers, who were on the FedSun's side of the FedCom Civil War. Her modified CES-3R was named Gertrude, and it was meaner than it sounds. The refit didn't mess with any of the mech's original hardware, keeping the 16 double heatsinks and 10.5 tons of standard plate armor. However, the handy yet mass-expensive medium pulse lasers from the 3R were sacrificed in favor of 8 ER medium lasers scattered across the mech's frame, all facing the front firing arc. This allowed Lieutenant McQuarters to continue to hammer targets with her ER-PPC and Gauss rifle combo at long range, and then close in to fire a devastating strike with the ER medium lasers into the hopefully already wounded target. The potential alpha strike damage was 65, though if fired while on the run, it did leave the Gertrude at 26 heat, which could require another turn to bleed off before moving on. During the Battle of Huai River Valley, Lieutenant McQuarters ended up cornered by mechs fielded by the Nanking Sarna March militia, who assumed that her mech's badly damaged right side had left it largely defenseless. She helped point out that mistake when she unleashed her ER medium lasers on the poor Whitworth and Griffin, who made the mistake of closing in for the kill. Both mechs were rendered into scrap, while 2 SMM Blackjacks attempted to fall back into long range. Both were chased down by the vindicated lieutenant and put down. Unfortunately, Gertrude did not survive the FedCom Civil War, though Lieutenant McQuarters did, and eventually upgraded to a brand new CES-4R Caesar for her well-earned reward. The lightly armored machine thought better of its rash tactic and pulled back toward its own lines. Not so a Guard Caesar, which had continued to move up after flaying away at Shakov's armor with its PPC. The 70-ton design was a hunter, able to absorb damage and return solid firepower. With a Gauss rifle and particle cannon at range, and pulse lasers up close, it was the most dangerous machine stalking Shakov's position. Storms of Fate by Lauren L. Coleman. By the 3060s, the advancement of technology prompted Johnston to take a look at updating the Caesar to keep it competitive. The resulting CES-4S included updated weaponry as well as a shift in structure to incorporate the brand new 280 light fusion engine. This reduced the size of the number of engine criticals on the side torsos to 2 apiece, which addressed some of the long-time concerns about the mech's survivability. Some of the mass cost was paid for with the use of new endosteel frames and a reduction in the number of double heatsinks to 12. To further bolster the mech's durability, the total armor coverage was boosted to 12 tons, or 192 points of protection. The 4S's weapons loadout reflected a shift in philosophy away from an all-ranges threat to a more mid- and short-range brawler thanks to the installation of a massive heavy Gauss rifle which sat in the right torso with 2 criticals split into the center torso. While it could hit out to 20 hexes, the tiered damage of the weapon encouraged the user to close in on the target and do its 20 or 25 damage at mid and short range, especially since there were only 3 tons of ammunition included in the 4S. One had to make those 12 shots count. To further encourage the Mechwarrior to close in on the target, the traditional ER-PPC was swapped out for a right arm-mounted large pulse laser and a pair of left torso-mounted ER medium lasers. Finally, 2 medium pulse lasers in the left arm were there for keeping light mechs and battle armor from wandering too close and for finishing off wounded prey. The 12 double heatsinks are adequate for general use, but the days of being oversynced were behind the Caesar. An alpha strike at close range while on the run left the mech at 8 heat into the red, which will hobble the mech a little bit on the next turn. I was curious about the heavy Gauss being split between the side and the center torso, so I dug into Total Warfare for the rule on critical hits. Should your center torso/right torso mounted heavy Gauss rifle explode within a right torso mounted case, the damage application depends upon if the critical hit originated in the side or center torso. For the side, the case would prevent the 25 points of damage from transferring into the center torso. If the critical hit originates in the center torso, well, hope your insurance is paid up. The Caesar 4S is a powerful machine, but one which wasn't for the faint of heart. With a minimum range of 4 on the heavy Gauss rifle and the rest of the weapons being largely optimal between 1 and 8, it was important that the Mechwarrior keep the target in a very tight band, which could be difficult with the Caesar's plotting 460 movement profile. Additionally, the 12 heavy Gauss round shots would leave the mech much less dangerous in long battles. All of this needed to be considered before one took the 4S out to play. If it wasn't to your liking, just 3 years later in 3067 a new variant was introduced, oddly designated the CES-3S. It's not at all confusing when that happens, right? The 4S comes out before the 3S, it just makes perfect sense. Don't worry about it. Just take deep, calming breaths and grab onto your elemental boyfriend or girlfriend's hand. It'll be okay. The Caesar 3S also benefited from the light fusion engine and endosteel, but also carried 13 tons of light ferrofibrous armor, providing 217 points of protection. The weapon's loadout is reminiscent of the original, with the bulk of the damage sourced from a pair of heavy weapons on the right side of the battle mech. The Gauss rifle in the right torso is no shock, but the right arm ER PPC was swapped out for a heavy PPC which could do 15 damage out to 18 hexes. The heavy PPC generated the same heat as an ER PPC, so the trade-off was 5 additional damage in exchange for 5x shorter range. The 2 arm-mounted medium pulse lasers were retained, but the 2 rear-facing lasers were pulled in favor of a single rear-facing ER small laser and a Guardian ECM system installed into the right torso. So yes, there is an Operation Sneaky Sneak Caesar. Veni Vini Vici. The Caesar 3S was a much more balanced design in comparison to its older cousin the 4S, while still packing a memorable punch. If I had to pick between the two, I'd go with the 3S for almost all applications. Quicksand occurs on Terra and many other planets when a fine granular material is suspended in water that cannot escape. Modern machines of war have little concern with the relatively shallow patches of quicksand that occur, but the strange geology of Odell allows for much deeper quicksand pits. While the cinematic terror of Major Quentin Carver's Caesar vanishing into quicksand in Fox Squad 5 left lasting nightmares to those who fell in love with the character, the quicksand on Odell will just impede movement and leave a unit stranded until they can extricate themselves from the messy morass. Bainbridge's Guide to Impactful Geography, Shrapnel No. 13 by Ken Horner. 3067 was a banner year for the Caesar as it received another variant designated the CES-4R that took things in another direction. Johnston produced the 4R for AFFS units who requested the company give the mech a little bit more oomph. This was done with the addition of Mask, which could temporarily push the movement profile up to 480 when needed. The structure for the 4R was reminiscent of the original, returning to a standard frame and an extra light fusion engine. However, it did carry 11.5 tons of ferrofibrous armor, which is pretty nice. The 4R's weapons loadout was similar to the original 3R Caesar, with its right torso-mounted Gauss rifle with case and 2 arm-mounted medium pulse lasers. New to the mech was the snub-nosed PPC in the traditional right arm big energy weapon slot. Finally, 3 ER medium lasers were split between the side and center torsos, the CT-mounted ER medium laser facing the rear firing arc. I have mixed feelings about the 4R because I want to pick and pull elements from the 3S and 4S to make a more preferable hybrid of light fusion engine and snub-nosed PPC. Most of the elements of the 4R scream close-range brawler, but that Inner Sphere XL engine screams rethink that plan. While the Mask is nice to have in a clinch, I'm in no hurry to get my XL engine blown up. Adam pulled open the curtains and saw the battered body of Colonel Ann Sung lying there. The 2nd Crucis Lancers had been pummeled hard in the last assault by the Falcons. If initial battle reports were correct, Colonel Sung and her Caesar had tangled directly with the Star Colonel Diane Anu, commanding officer of the Golden Talons. As Adam stared down at her burned and broken body, he thought back to the report he'd received. Colonel Sung had risked her life to buy time for Adam's command company to fall back while under fire. According to one witness, she had almost defeated Anu, but was horribly flash-burned while trying to punch out in the middle of a furious PPC blast of charged particles. Operation Audacity by Blaine Lee Pardoe. During the Dark Age, New Syrtis faced hard economic times, largely due to the continuing conflict with the Capellan Confederation, as well as the loss of the planet's hyperpulse generator, which defied attempts at repair. Johnston Industries was able to weather the direct conflict, even though it did take the direct intervention of the 4th Donegal Guards at one point to keep the production lines from being damaged in the fight with the Capellans. Between the Capellans, the word of Blake, and even an assault by the Taurians in 3076, New Syrtis' dance card was full for the better part of a century. Only after the planet was firmly back in the hands of the Fed Sons did Johnston Industries put in the effort to upgrade the Caesar with new tech. Eventually, 2 designs floated to the top. The first, which was designated the CES-5D, was a blueprint design from the big brains on New Avalon in tandem with help from Clan Seafox that didn't see production until 3148. It featured endosteel, triple-strength myomer, a supercharger, an XL gyro, XL engine, and 26 tons of hardened armor. The armor investment was considerable, and it dropped that movement profile to 450, unless the triple-strength myomer or supercharger was in play. This is getting to be a very expensive battle mech, and we haven't even gotten to the weaponry yet. Speaking of, the Seafox influence came into play with a collection of clan-spec weapons, including a hyper-assault Gauss rifle set into the traditional right torso ballistics location, 2 clan-spec medium pulse lasers split between the arms, and a clan-spec ERPPC installed into the right arm. For close-range conflict de-escalation, clan-spec talons were added to each leg, allowing the 5D to do 21 damage in a successful kick thanks to the talons, which do 1.5 times normal damage. The HAG-20 and ERPPC made a solidly powerful pair of long-range heavy hitters, but the 5D's ability to ramp up the triple-strength myomer for a devastating kicking attack makes close-range fighting downright terrifying. If you ended the previous turn on over 9 heat, your kicking damage the next turn would be 42, which is enough to kick through the armor on an Atlas D's leg and go internal for 1 damage. A kick against a Marauder 9D would leave that Marauder's leg with just 4 points of internal structure remaining. Any mech lighter than that, and you're just going to be kicking legs off. The downsides to the Caesar 5D are the price and the fact that there is a learning curve anytime you're dealing with triple-strength myomer mixed with mask. It makes for a triple black diamond experience. If this isn't your first rodeo, give it a try. Otherwise, you could be running back and forth to Total Warfare with the Battle Mech manual to make sure you're doing it all correctly. Only one of the pulse lasers delivered its scarlet energy bolts on target, but did so devastatingly. They lanced through the armor over the mech's heart. The thermal image of the mech went white, indicating damage to the engine shielding. Moreover, the Caesar shook, suggesting damage to the gyro. In that instance, it really didn't matter, however, because the pilot shot back. A PPC beam liquefied armor on the Timberwolf's right side. It ran down the leg in a steaming flood that melted snow. Then the Gauss rifle on the Caesar's right side flashed. A silver ball arced out and slammed hard into the clan mech. The Gauss slug shattered armor off the mech's right arm, but failed to fully penetrate it. Alaric jammed himself back against the command couch and leaned left, countering the impact. Can't allow my mech to go down. He fought against gravity and by sheer willpower kept the Timberwolf from stumbling. Masters of War by Michael A. Stackpole. The most recent Caesar on the timeline also first stomped off the assembly lines in 3148. Designated the CES-5R, this version of the Caesar is a much more Spartan experience, but still contains some nice bells and whistles. It shared the same structural elements of the 5D except for the lack of triple-strength myomer and mask, leaving the movement profile at a plodding 450. The 5R's weapon loadout is a nod to the original Caesar with the return of the Gauss rifle to the right torso along with 2 tons of ammunition. However, this time it is protected by Case 2, which improves the survivability of the mech considerably. A snub-nosed PPC in the right arm meets the need for additional punch, and finally 4 ER medium lasers were installed, 2 split between the arms and 2 in the side torsos facing the rear firing arc. While there's not much wrong with this build, it's still a considerable investment for this version of the Caesar, which is tough to take down but lacks the mobility that one would want with ER medium lasers and a snub-nosed PPC. While I applaud the effort to make the Caesar a much tougher machine, I worry that it might be left behind in an assault and too easily cornered by light mechs that can and would tear it up, even with those two rear-facing ER medium lasers in play. The Caesar fired its Gauss rifle into the exterminator's knee, crushing armor and snapping the right leg out straight, pulverizing the lower leg actuator. Not realizing that his knee was ruined, Shakov put too much weight on it as he fought against the kinetic delivery of the impact. The exterminator's leg twisted, buckled. He gave up the fight, surrendering to the fall and working his controls to make the landing as easy as possible. Rolling off his mech's left shoulder, he lost more armor to the unforgiving ground, but was able to get his arms up under him to push his mech back upright. Storms of Fate by Lauren L. Coleman. Now, I've always been a big fan of the Caesar, so I jumped at the chance to take a crack at creating my very own unofficial and non-canon IlClan era variant of the Noble Defender of Rome, or some planet in space. I originally started with the 3S as the basis with its light fusion engine, but it quickly ran away with me as I decided to make it a Capellan refit with some clan tech. Unless expressly labeled, the tech is inner sphere grade. For example, the Endosteel frame is IS, while the 18 double heatsinks are clan spec. The 460 movement profile was retained out of tradition, but I went ahead and nearly maxed out the armor protection at 13.5 tons of standard plate. Now getting into the good stuff, I leaned into the brawler mindset with the addition of a trio of heavy hitters. Starting with the right arm, two snub-nosed PPCs augmented with PPC capacitors offered the mech a primary punch, while next to them in the right torso is a plasma rifle fed by 2 tons of ammunition in the center torso. Why the center torso instead of next to the rifle? Well, because I like critical padding. Over in the left arm, 3 ER medium lasers could help finish off a target. Their aim was improved slightly thanks to the left arm mounted actuator enhancement system. Now, while quite powerful in the mid and short range, the biggest challenge of the Caesar 6MF is heat management. At a glance, it doesn't seem so bad, but the PPC capacitors add an additional 5 heat per charged shot. In a full broadside alpha strike on the run, 57 heat is generated. Minus the 36 cooling, that's 21 heat remaining, which seriously hobbles the mech on the following turn and risks a shutdown on a 6+. It could be worth it if that potential 55 damage could put down your target for good. In more general use scenarios, the ER medium lasers are likely to be more useful with the -1 to hit bonus, even if it means holding off the plasma rifle or using the snub-nosed PPCs without capacitors charged. It offers a variety of different options in the moment, and who doesn't like having more options, right? If you'd like to give the Caesar 6MF a try, I've included the record sheet and Alpha Strike card for it in the video notes below. Enjoy. Although hurt by the striker's weapons, Niels wasn't about to surrender his advantage so easily. With the barricade almost up, his Caesar extended its right arm to angle one last shot at the victor. The handheld PPC flared another cascade of man-made lightning across the field, burning into the striker's midline and carving a new molten-edge scar into the battlemech's chest. One more hit and Niels would be through the armor there. Victor swore silently, though the stadium crowd went crazy with the hard-hitting exchange. Illusions of Victory by Lauren L. Coleman. Standing at the dawn of the IlClan era, the Caesar has had a century to establish itself as a formidable machine. Its biggest challenge was to escape the shadow of the cataphract, which I think it has thanks to a series of strong variants that each demonstrate just how powerful the mix between ballistics and energy weapons can be in the right hands. While not everyone is a big fan of 2 different primary weapons, the Caesar proves it can be done well. The 2 most recent variants on the timeline are strong, and hopefully they'll get some limelight in the future events as we move deeper into the IlClan era, especially with the resurgent Federated Sons looking for steady footing. Now, before we wrap up, I did want to share a little bit of Caesar trivia that didn't quite fit anywhere else in the main script. In Field Manual 3085, one Michael Hyung-se was highlighted as a legendary commanding officer within the infamous Capellan Death Commandos. Apparently, during the retrieval operation for Kai Allard Liao from New Syrtis during the Word of Blake kerfuffle, Hyung-se was reported to have used myomer cable attached to the foundation of a prison building to tear away a Caesar's cockpit hatch before firing an Inferno missile into the cockpit. Somewhere, Lori Carlisle just shivered. But I'm curious what you think about the Caesar. Are you a fan, or did you forget that it existed? Did you prefer the cataphract? If not, don't worry, I won't report you to the Chancellor for re-education. Thanks as always for coming out today. If you think the video deserves it and you want to show your support, the easiest way to do that is to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, or even leave a comment. All of these things make the YouTube algorithm happy. If you want to go one step further, direct support through KoFi or a YouTube channel membership is a great way to help ensure that the nonsense keeps flowing. Just a couple of bucks a month can make a big difference. I can't do this without you, and I appreciate it. If you'd like to join the nonsense on the MechFrog Discord channel, we'd love to see you. I've included a link to the server in the video notes. It's the best way to find out what's coming up next week, talk to BattleTech fans, share your awesome mech paint jobs, and otherwise just hang out with some pretty awesome people. With that, I'll say have a great week, take care of yourself, and go out and make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.